It is now rear brake time for the 99 Impreza. So these are the stock 2.5 RS calipers and rotors. It does have stainless steel lines already, but I'm going to be upgrading to the 2-pot rears to kind of match the 4-pot fronts that we just did in the part 1 of this. One of the reasons why I'm finally deciding to do this now is that the rear wheel bearings on my Subaru are shot. They're howling like crazy. You could replace them on the car, right? There's a bunch of videos on how to do that. But I decided to actually pick up a set of knuckles and press in some new bearings. This one, you can see the bearings in here, new seals. The little red thing is just the little spacer that holds the inner races together. I have to press in the new hub. That one's ready to go. The hub's in already. But these are knuckles off of a 2006 WRX. And what you will see, the most important thing is here are the mounting locations. And let's see if it shows right here. They line right up. So no adapters. I mean, I'm holding it backwards, right? This will actually bolt this way. But no adapters, bolt straight to these knuckles. So I am getting the brake upgrade and I'm getting brand new wheel bearings. So I'm killing 2 birds, 1 stone. The other cool thing about the ones I was able to find locally, I don't know if you can see this, but the ABS sensor is not cut. It's all there. And the parking brake line is all there, not cut. So I could swap this right over, plug that in, and then I have the option of either running this up to the center console or unhooking the one that's in there, which is hooked under the bottom of one of the shoes here, under the parking brake shoe. So in theory, this should be pretty simple swap, considering I have everything, right? Have the knuckle, everything's all there. I mean, in theory, I could even bolt the calipers and everything on ahead of time before I swap it onto the car. But anyone who has any experience with Subarus knows what this is. And these are the bolts that hold the lower part of the knuckle to the lower control arms. And these are an absolute nightmare because they tend to seize right into the bushings. So here's where we stand. Again, the knuckle is held on by essentially 4 bolts. There's this little guy down here, which connects the knuckle to the trailing arm. There's the long bolt, which I already showed, which connects both lower control arms. And then there are 2 bolts up top. Let me swing around here. I think I had a better look at them. There's 2 bolts right there that hold the strut on. So, just to my luck, this guy here broke free, which is, half the battle. But the one on the passenger side is seized. Lower control arm, or trailing arm bolt, the one on the passenger side came free. This one here is seized. So I have to spend some time basically hacking at these or cutting these off. I'm not really gonna use heat because I don't wanna damage the bushings, like the bushings that are in here, the rubber. So I'm just gonna lop off, well, this one's fine. This one's gonna come off. But the other one, I'm just gonna lop off the nut at one end and do the same thing for this guy right here. And just get everything apart, get everything off, and then start the reassembly. Disassembly is complete on the driver's side here. Most of the other side is done as well, but I just wanted to show a couple things. The lower strut bolt was a nightmare. Top one came out perfectly. This one was super tight. I think I already mentioned the guy that went here that connected the lower trailing arm to the knuckle. This was seized, but the long bolt, that's usually the issue that connects here to here. That one actually came out on this side. I did disconnect the sway bar end link so I could push this guy down out of the way, so then I could swing the axle out so I could get to this bolt. That's why this is all disassembled like this. But that's it. I got the parking brake cable out. I did not cut it. I did cut the ABS sensor. I did cut that because the new Knuckles have new ones on it. But this guy I tried to save, even though the new Knuckle has one on it. I'm going to spend some time cleaning all this up, cleaning all this rust off, you know, clean everything up, get rid of the rust, treat it with like POR 15 or something like that, and just get everything looking nice, looking good. The sway bar I'm going to leave for now because I intend to replace this and replace the end links and the mount kit and all that fun stuff. But all that in there, I want to clean up and make sure it all looks good. Here are the stock rear calipers. Okay, and for comparison, here's the new guy that we're replacing it with. All right, so you can see this just has a piston on the inside, nothing on the outside, whereas the two-pot has one on the inside and the outside. The other thing you could clearly see here is you can see the mounting points, how they're closer together on the two-pot versus the one-pot, where they're further apart, okay? The other thing is, here are the rotors I removed, and this is the replacement, so you can see the size difference. So these are going to be the new guys. Again, I just spec'd out WRX 2006 braking components. So that's the new rotor. Couple little observations. So these are the bolts. Like I said, it was a nightmare. This is what I could find still. Everything else, you know, went flying across the shop floor and stuff like that. But you can see I did some cutting to get some of these guys out, not to mess with them. Other observation, here's the knuckle I removed. I don't know if you noticed this, but you see these bolt holes? How there's nothing there? This is where the tone ring, the pickup for the ABS should be mounted. There's none on this. Here's the replacement knuckle, and you can see the bolts, and you could actually see that little ring there with those ridges. Yeah, they weren't even on there. So that's interesting. So what I'm gonna do now is finish disassembling the other side and then clean, like I said, I'm gonna clean everything up, treat any rust, grind off what I can, treat whatever's up there, paint everything nice. And then it's reassembly time. So one of the things I wanted to show, I mentioned that one of the reasons why I'm changing the knuckles is I had a noisy wheel bearing. So this is the driver's side knuckle. And this is the passenger side knuckle. So it's time for some reassembly. So here's the new knuckle, and I am going to mount it. I'm going to slide the axle through, try to line up the bolt holes on the strut, and then do all the trailing arm, the control arm. So here we go. Make sure it's the right one. Okay. So I slid the axle on. I'm going to put the axle nut just to kind of hold this so it doesn't pop off. Now I'm going to put one of these strut bolts through. So got one of those through, and tighten the top nut. The next bolt I'm going to put in is the lower control arm here. Through. So we're going to line up the control arms. So the knuckle is mounted, everything lined up like it was supposed to. So again, it's 2 bolts from the strut to the top of the knuckle, the 1 long bolt for the 2 lower control arms, and then 1 bolt at the bottom for the trailing arm. This one I have loose because I had to cut the one off on the other side. I have to go get a replacement. So I'm gonna bring this with me just to make sure I got the right bolt. Sway bar end link I'll do once it's all done, but it's just sitting there and it bolts right in there. And then the axle nut, which I did not dimple yet. So there's like a little, you have to hit it with like a chisel to get it to lock. I'll do that once it's down. But the hardest part of what I did here was the parking brake cable. So I just used the parking brake cable that was on the car. So I don't have to go and disassemble the center console to hook the ones that came with the knuckles there. Basically I took this shoe off by undoing this little retainer and these 2 springs. This shoe came off, and underneath the shoe is where the parking brake cable kind of hooks into it. So hooked it, put that all back together, and now we're ready for rotor, caliper, and the brake line. So I just adjusted the little adjuster here to tighten it up to make the diameter of the pads, the shoes rather, for the parking brake as small as possible. So they will slide into here, into this side, this drum. So rotor's on. Now it's caliper time. So it's easy. So I'm just gonna come in here, get the 2 bolts. That's that. You'll notice I just mounted the caliper without the pads. This is like I showed in the other video. The pads you can load after the caliper is actually mounted. We'll torque all that down. So here's the banjo fitting. Calipers mounted. Now it's time to mount the pads. There's just some hardware that goes in here. Okay. So that pad went in. So we got the one pad in. Now it's the inner pad here. And then this is the little retainer that kind of keeps them in with these pins. So let's do this. I'm gonna put that there to kind of catch the pad itself. You can see I kind of spring pushed it in so the pins and then they came right out the other side. So I just use my little pick to rotate these pins because the pins have a little hole in them that the wire retainer goes through. Oops. There. So this side is complete. Just gonna have to bleed the brake, bleed the brakes overall. I'm gonna put my pressure power bleeder on the reservoir and then crack all these open, starting with this one because this is the passenger side rear, so it's the furthest from the reservoir, from the master cylinder. So you want to start here to start bleeding out air. But that's really it. The other side is going to go just like this. And I have fresh wheel bearings, no adapters, and everything's all hooked up and using all OEM parts.